Imagine waking up tomorrow and suddenly understanding everyone, their reactions, their moods, even the things they do that used to drive you absolutely insane. Imagine finally understanding yourself with the clarity most people spend their whole lives searching for. What if all of that came down to just four ancient temperaments? And what if, without realizing it, you've been living out the same emotional script your entire life because of one core temperament that quietly shapes how you think, feel, and connect? Today, we're uncovering a framework that's influenced humanity for over 2,000 years. Before personality tests, before the Enneagram, before Myers-Briggs, there was this. The ancient Greeks, beginning with the physician Hippocrates, believed every person leaned toward one of four temperaments: melancholic, sanguine, choleric, and phlegmatic. Now, we're not here to talk about body humors like they did, but modern psychology has revived this framework because, as a lens for understanding someone's emotional engine, it's shockingly accurate. The twist? Most people don't know which one they are because the world has taught them to hide their temperament rather than understand it. We're going to change that starting now. Let's begin with the temperament most people misunderstand: the melancholic. If you're melancholic, you don't just feel things, you absorb them. You are the person who notices what others ignore. You sense the small shift in someone's tone, the sadness behind a smile.
You walk into a room and immediately read the emotional temperature. This is your superpower, but it can also feel like your burden. Melancholics often hold on to memories longer, think deeper, and struggle more intensely with the fear of failure or rejection. They're the thinkers, the analyzers, the ones who ask big questions because life actually feels that profound to them. This profile often aligns with high scores in neuroticism and openness in modern frameworks like the Big Five. But here's the beautiful part. Melancholics are some of the most loyal, compassionate, and creative people on Earth. Their depth gives them wisdom. Their sensitivity gives them empathy. Before we continue, pause for a second. Do you recognize a hint of melancholic in yourself? Or maybe you're thinking of someone in your life who feels deeply, loves deeply, and remains misunderstood because of it. Every temperament carries a gift. The key is learning how to use it. Now, let's take a sharp turn to the sanguine. If the melancholic feels deeply, the sanguine experiences life as an ever-changing mosaic of possibilities.
They're natural optimists, constantly seeing what could go right. They're the ones who make a dull room brighter just by walking in, who crack jokes in awkward moments, who remember stories instead of deadlines and feelings instead of details. This temperament often corresponds to high extroversion in modern personality models. And yes, sometimes that gets them into trouble. Sanguines can struggle with consistency and routine. But when the world needs warmth, energy, connection, and joy, it's the sanguine who steps in. Their gift is reminding us that life is supposed to be lived, not just analyzed.
If the sanguine brings the energy, the choleric brings the direction. This is the temperament that wakes up already thinking about goals, strategy, and results. They move fast, speak directly, and expect the world to keep up. Cholerics are bold, decisive leaders. They take charge not because they want control, but because they genuinely believe things will go better if they lead the way. And often, they're right. But their strength has shadows. Their blunt honesty can feel harsh. Their intensity can overwhelm more sensitive temperaments. And in some cultures, that directness might even clash with group norms that value group harmony. Yet, beneath that exterior, there's often a deep desire to protect, to build, to shape the world into something safer and more stable. They're not tyrants, they're builders. Now, let's turn to the quietest, most underestimated temperament of all.
There's a quiet power in the room. It's not the loudest voice, it's not the boldest idea. It's the person who brings calm to the chaos. This is the phlegmatic, the peacekeeper. They're the natural stabilizers, the listeners who don't get swept away by drama or pressure. They think before reacting and observe before speaking. And while they can struggle with indecision and procrastinate more than they'd like to admit, underneath that gentle surface is a quiet resilience, a strength that shows up when things fall apart and keeps everyone grounded. If you've ever been the emotional anchor for your friends, if people come to you for advice because you're an excellent listener,
there's a good chance you lean phlegmatic.
But here's where things get interesting. At this point, you might be thinking, well, I'm kind of both. Or I can be deep like a melancholic, but I also love people like a sanguine. And that is exactly the secret of the four temperaments. Most people are a blend, but one temperament always leads. One acts as your emotional operating system, the one you revert to under pressure, the one that defines your most natural reactions.
You are a primary and a secondary. Think of it like a soundtrack. Your primary is the melody, the part people recognize first. Your secondary is the harmony, the thing that adds depth. A sanguine phlegmatic is social, yet calm. A phlegmatic choleric is gentle, but surprisingly strong-willed. This blend explains your habits, your triggers, and your strengths. So the real question isn't what are you, but which temperament leads your life. As I describe these, don't think about who you wish you were or who your job demands you be. Think about what feels like home, your natural rhythm. If you're melancholic, your mind goes deep. You analyze, you prepare, you notice patterns others miss. You fear letting people down. If you're sanguine, your default is joy. You crave connection, spontaneity, and creativity. You bring life into lifeless spaces. If you're choleric, action is your language. You think in solutions, move fast, and lead without trying. And if you're phlegmatic, you observe. You listen. You avoid conflict and crave stability. You are the calm center. And here's something beautiful. Most relationship problems aren't personal. They're temperamental. A choleric might think a phlegmatic is too slow. A phlegmatic might think a choleric is too intense. But when you understand this framework, you stop blaming differences and start appreciating them, because every temperament fills another's gaps.
A phlegmatic's calm softens a choleric's intensity. Their diplomatic nature helps mediate conflicts that others might escalate. A melancholic's depth can anchor a sanguine's impulsiveness. We are not meant to be the same. We are meant to complement each other. But here's the part most people forget. Your temperament explains your tendencies. It does not define your destiny. A phlegmatic can become bold. A choleric can become gentle. Temperament is the starting point, not the finish line. The true journey is learning to grow beyond your defaults while honoring the nature you were born with. Understanding your temperament isn't about putting yourself in a box. It's about unlocking a deeper awareness of how you operate so you can become the healthiest version of who you already are. Because when you understand your temperament, you understand your patterns. When you understand your patterns, you understand your story. And when you understand your story, you finally understand yourself. The journey doesn't end here. It starts here.
I'm glad you stayed with me until the end. Let me ask you one last question. Now that you've seen the four temperaments, which one feels like home for you? Think about it. The truth is, understanding your temperament is one of the greatest acts of self-awareness you can give yourself. It helps you see your strengths more clearly, recognize your struggles with compassion, and embrace the ways you're wired instead of fighting against them. And here's the beautiful part. No temperament is better than another. They each hold a different kind of brilliance. Your blend makes you unique, and knowing it helps you grow into the person you're meant to be. The goal here is to develop the positive qualities of all four temperaments. If you found clarity today or even discovered something new about yourself, make sure you subscribe and watch the other videos on this channel. There's so much more to learn about the mind, our behaviors, and the patterns that shape us. Thanks for watching, and remember, your temperament doesn't limit you.